to an exclusive on Pod Hub Network. Your city, your podcast.
To the delight of this crowd, McClendon marches down the dugout steps with first base.
McCutcheon's throw. The runner breaks to the plate. Here's the throw. Wow. He is out. The Buccos win. That ball's hit well to left center field. Back toward the track. And that ball is gone.
You are listening to the North Shore 9 podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also, make sure to watch NS9 Live every Thursday on Twitch and help support by becoming a patron. Let's go Bucks!
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Starbucs, this special edition Starbucs. Here we are on a Monday. Look at us being overzealous today, Jim. We didn't even... it's supposed to be on a Tuesday. Times we go off on a Wednesday. Last week, we didn't even do it at all. And here we are on a Monday. So anxious to do the show today. I wonder why.
Yeah, something happened yesterday. And so, yeah, we got up early on Monday. We're gonna discuss the Adam Frazier trade finally happened.
Oh, that's what this is about. I thought we were talking about the Cleveland Guardians.
We can talk about that too, but probably not.
So the Pirates. Okay. All right. So we've been pretty much thinking the Pirates would be trading Adam Frazier for approximately a year now, right? Looked maybe into the offseason. It didn't happen at all, even though he was like the most talked about, by John Heyman. All the traction, all the trade talk never took place. Go into this season. Cherington's looking like a genius hanging on to Adam Frazier because of how well Adam Frazier played right now. Right, last year probably saw him at his lowest. He hangs on to him, trades Tyone, trades Musgrove, trades Bell. Musgrove's having a good season. The rest, more to be desired maybe. So it worked out pretty good. Adam Frazier goes in this year, he's leading MLB in, hits, leading in doubles. He's an all-star in Denver. Has the first hit there in Denver, right, as an all-star. Just a great, fantastic season. So it finally happens yesterday. Like what was it, the 8th inning, the 9th inning? Close to the end of the game.
I want to say it was the 8th is kind of when things started trickling.
Okay.
And then, yeah. Because I think when was he taken out of the game? I think he was taken out in the 8th.
I think so. That's what I was trying to remember. I know he was up at the 7th. So the 8th inning comes. And right, it's reports that Adam Frazier has been traded to the Padres. For one, let's just talk about the team. The Padres, I was stunned by. You're hearing the Mariners, you've been hearing the Yankees, you've been hearing the White Sox. There's a number of teams they're connected with. Mm-hmm. Never did I hear the Padres. You?
No, I don't think I heard any of the Padres. And then when, once they said, the Padres, I was like, okay, that makes sense, because Cronenworth's been playing a lot of first base.
Hosmer stinks.
Jurickson Profar's been playing second. He stinks. So, yeah. And once I kind of heard it, I was like, okay, I could see that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's the Padres. Then it's rumored to be 3 players. So right off the bat, I'm thinking, okay, 3 players. Cherington's doing kind of well. His MO has been taking like these low-ranked guys, in the lower minors. High risk, high reward, lots of upside. Probably the same thing. Everyone starts scouring the prospect rankings now, looking. So then it's announced the return. Apologize for the names, but Tucupita.
I got you if you need. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Tucupita Marcano, Jack Suwinski, and is it Michell Miliano?
That one I'm not really sure on.
Okay. So it's either I'm thinking Michelle Miliano or Mitchell Miliano.
Michelle, maybe.
Michelle. All right.
Michelle.
I'm calling him Michel from now on. He's become French. So that's That's the return. Let's start by talking, as we always typically do, initial reaction. Jim, you have the floor.
So initial reaction before digging in too deep. Because as far as Jack Suwinksi, I had never heard of. Miliano, I had never heard of. Tucupita Marcano, I have been pretty aware of for a while now. So Marcano, actually, for those who may not know, but Marcano, he was in single A last year. He actually made the Padres opening day roster this year. And that was because I don't really know why, because he somehow made it because someone was hurt on the Padres coming out of spring training. I don't know if it was Profar, if it was Cronenworth, but somebody was out at the beginning of the year, and he stuck around for a little bit because because then Tatis got hurt. So once Tatis got hurt, he kind of stayed there. That early April series against the Pirates, Marcano was on the Padres. Actually made a start. I think he started at maybe third base that game, I want to say. But he was part of that game where Mitch Keller just kind of blew up in the first inning. So he's somebody that, I mean, if you were watching, you've like seen him before, you probably didn't really take notice of him. But 21-year-old, plays shortstop, plays second base, plays third base, plays left field, plays right field, kind of plays all over the diamond. Initially, when I was like, okay, looking at this trade, Marcano is the only one I've heard of, so he's obviously he's the headliner here, right? The other two, we'll kind of get to, but Marcano is the headliner. And at first, my first reaction was like, this is not the headliner I was necessarily expecting for Adam Frazier. And the reason why I thought that is just because I'm just not a fan of players like Marcano, like that profile, right? He's young, right? So, and I was all over Twitter last night talking about this, but he's young. He's only 21 years old. He's in AAA. He's pretty advanced. But like that profile of player, right, where he, good bat to ball skills, but very little to no power, right?
Right.
I'm kind of over those guys. We see Newman, we've seen Frazier, and Frazier has had a great year, right? But you look at like Frazier's entire career, and he's been a pretty uninspiring player. I was hoping for kind of more what Cherington has done the past couple of trades, where he gets these really high upside guys.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcano is someone who I feel like has a pretty high floor, mainly because of his versatility. But the upside isn't really there, right? So that was my initial thought. Moving to Suwinski. What are your thoughts on Marcano? Right?
Okay.
That's just initial thoughts, and then I can go into a little deep dive, but those are initial.
So I'll be honest. So throughout the names, there was two of them at first, and I don't think Marcano was first listed, or maybe he was. No, he was part of the first two. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't. I'll admit, like, I wasn't too familiar with him at all. Of course, either of them. So the first thing I do was go to MLB Pipeline. Okay. Don't ask me why. I just think I will say that's probably the easiest to navigate of all the sites to just find prospects and see rankings and stuff like that. So step up your game, Fangraphs, and Baseball America, and then I'll go to you first. But I went there first, and initially saw him as the number 5. So, like, I guess initial reaction was, well, wow, like the Padres number 5 prospect. That's pretty solid. And then next to the name, I saw 50 for his value. And as we talked last week with the Nelson Cruz trade, right, and the value, and my question, and I kind of rephrased it, wasn't specific to those players, but like the return value, right? You got 245s in return for the Twins, pretty solid. It was like, well, could Frazier fetch a 50? Well, boom, there's a 50 according to Pipeline. Like, all right, Cherington, number 5 in the Padres prospect list, pretty solid. It's a 50 value, pretty solid. My next move was Fangraphs. Jim, that didn't go over too well. that didn't help. When you go to Fangraphs and saw him ranked as the 11th, right, and a 40 future value, I was wondering why. What's going on here? So initial, without looking too deep, I guess just kind of seeing that, right, researching was because obviously there wasn't a whole lot of certainty. And then I guess Baseball America had him at, I think, 7th. So, yeah, I mean, for one, there's not too much certainty on where this guy is. He's young. He's in AAA. The last season of 2020, he went from single A just to AAA. Clearly late hitting. You look at the other guys, they're not ranked like anywhere, basically. Baseball America did say that, well, there'll be rankings. I guess we'll talk about that a little here. But yeah, like I said, initially it was, Cherington, what's going on with this deal? Because it's like you said, it's not the MO at all. It's not the MO at all. It's not typically what he has done. Which doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's not as if, well, it's not what he's normally done. It's just terrible. It's not what he's done. But even with that said, understanding that Frazier's not going to return this haul. I mean, we joked it's not going to be a top 100. It's not going to be Andrew Vaughn. It's not going to be those types at all. But you would figure it'd be like Marte. This is kind of to a degree, but these aren't the type of players in that deal at all. Like there was, yeah, I don't know. I kind of wonder what MLB Pipeline season in Marcano as well to give that type of grade, because you're right, he is limited. Not saying he can't be good, but yeah, my initial reaction was kind of, I don't know, Cherington.
Yeah. I mean, I would say just, the differences, and like I said, this is all just scouts and what they see in him, right? MLB Pipeline has their scouts, Fangraphs has their scouts, Pirates have their own scouts, right? That doesn't have anything to do with either of these two, right? So the Pirates have their own grade on this guy. And it's something where, Pipeline kind of thinks he can develop some power, right?
Sure.
Not a ton, but they think that he can develop some power. Fangraphs on the other side does not think that he can develop any power. Fangraphs actually has his hit tool ranked higher than Pipeline. So Fangraphs thinks that he can make contact. But yeah, Fangraphs is just really, really low on the power potential. And it's interesting. I'm gonna be interested to see, because my guess is Marcano is not going to report to the majors. I'm going to be interested to see Marcano and the numbers he can put up outside the Pacific Coast League, right? So he was playing in El Paso. I don't know if you guys have ever been to El Paso, but it's not exactly like the lowest elevation place in the world.
Right.
El Paso's, it's at 3,700 feet above sea level, right? That's kind of how the Pacific Coast League is like kind of all of those ballparks are high elevation. So you never really know what to think when you look at home run totals from the PCL. So I'm going to be interested to see, first off, because a AAA assignment for him in general is pretty aggressive. So I'm going to be interested to see if they just send him to Indianapolis. And then I'm also going to be equally interested to just see kind of what the power numbers do, right? Because he had 3 home runs in 3 years, basically, in the minor leagues. 3 homers in 3 years. This year he has 6 at AAA, which is something, right? I mean, if you can give me that over 44 games, then that actually shows some pop. just how real is that number? I guess we'll see. So we'll once we get him into a ballpark closer to sea level, kind of see where he's at there. And that'll kind of show, okay, is he more like a 25-30 power guy, and I'm talking about a 20-80 scale, so 25-30 is bad, or is he more like Pipeline has him at a 45, right? And if you're at a 45, then I mean, hell, you're okay, right? So that's what I'm going to be looking at most to see when he gets into this organization. But to kind of just wrap up the Marcano talk, personally underwhelmed just because I'm not really interested in guys with that type of profile. Again, if he's really good at making contact and he can become Adam Frazier, then, at the end of the day, you got to say this is a good trade. If you trade Adam Frazier for somebody who becomes Adam Frazier, that's a good deal, right? It's just not really someone that I'm interested in acquiring, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Yeah. So I think that's just kind of how I view Marcano. I think at the end of the day, the Pirates love this guy. That's who it seems like they were after. They threw in extra money, so they could probably get him. I think it was John Heyman who said, the Pirates wanted Marcano when they were in the Musgrove trade talks this offseason, and the Padres would not discuss him. They said, we're not willing to move him. But he clearly has had his eye on him for a while, and he was finally able to get his target in this trade. So we'll see. This trade, a lot of it is going to come down to just kind of how he is. I think the one thing you can say about Marcano is that he's a very safe pick to at least be a major leaguer, mostly because of the versatility, right? Anybody who can play third base, shortstop, second base, left field, right field, and do it competently and be able to hit the ball a little bit is going to be able to find a spot on a roster, right? But to me, I'm feeling like that's kind of more his upside, is a super utility guy, like I'm not talking about batting profiles in any way, but think of think of Sean Rodriguez, right? Like that type of versatile super utility player. Like I think he could become that. Maybe not with the power that Rodriguez has, and obviously like totally different hitting profiles, but that type of super utility guy, I think is what he can certainly become capable of. I don't think you're looking at someone though who can be an everyday player in the majors.
So that's kind of my word. I'll tell you what. So there's a few things here. We're not going to move on. We'll still talk about him. Okay. So a couple things here. For one, I'm with you on the profile. Something that kind of worries me is to the degree, like you said, this is a guy who I feel like you hope to become Adam Frazier. And when I say that, listen, we love Adam Frazier. Okay, it's well known. You guys know it. I know it. We liked Adam Frazier a lot. He can hit, right? I'm not saying this kid can't hit. I mean, like the good things that stand out with him, he doesn't strike out at all, right? And the thing about him that's pretty cool too is he walks actually. Like it's not as he just doesn't strike out. He actually does walk. He gets on base. That's something that Adam Frazier didn't do to this degree at all ever either. So he doesn't strike out. Makes contact. He gets on base by walks. Actually, in his career, he has, I believe, more walks than strikeouts. Correct? In his minor league career,
more walks than strikeouts, and he has more walks than strikeouts as a 21-year-old in AAA. So that you can point to and say, hey, that's pretty impressive.
Exactly. So there's that thing about him. Like you talk about the hit tool and such. He makes contact, doesn't strike out, walks a lot. I mean, that's good to see. The other thing too is, you're right. Like in 2019, he was in A-ball. There was no baseball in 2020. So like you said, like, what are you going to do? If you're the Padres, what are you going to do with this kid? Well, of course, like you mentioned, he's on the opening day roster. But then he slides down and goes to AAA, not AA. So a pretty aggressive push. I mean, you figure before this season, he's never seen anything above A ball, and he's playing in AAA. It's a pretty aggressive promotion. He's holding his own, a 101 weighted uncrated plus in there. So he's about league average as a. I'm not gonna like. It's not like he's extremely. It's not like he's 19 or 20. You know, like we talk about Peguera, how young he is. It's not. I want to say he's like too young in the extreme, but he's still young, and it's a big push for him. So he's holding his own in AAA. That's a positive. But I do worry. Like I look at this and I feel, as we mentioned, like his best is Adam Frazier. You're hoping he becomes Adam Frazier, and that's really not what I want to see in the return. Like if a guy that you get settles to become Adam Frazier, that's fine. But I almost feel like his peak is hoping he's Adam Frazier one day. And these other two guys aren't as inspiring as well. So again, it does worry me a little bit. What really worries me too, and then looking in here as well and further, again, Fangraphs is really down on him. So this is the worst of what you're hearing. But Fangraphs pretty much says, you know, that like all this stuff is good that we talked about, you mentioned as well. Like the hit tool error is actually pretty good. They think he is, but it's just as they said, he is so rail thin, as I'm quoting, he is so rail thin that I don't think he's going to add meaningful weight and strength. You could argue this is a low variance 45 sort of profile, but I don't think Marcano is so good at shortstop that's the case. One note, offensive players like Freddie Galvis and Jose Iglesias, classic 45s, are each both comfortably better defenders than Marcano. So we're talking about his defense as well. His defense isn't as great, and it's not like he's some superb defender that glove just plays, you know, and the bat's just extra. His defensive footwork is great, but his hands and actions are just okay. I'm cautious about overgrading Marcano just because he's so advanced. I think he'll end up a utility player in the Cesar Itzuris mold. That's frightening. That is frightening. Okay, now again, this is the worst of the rankings. But that, as your headliner, is absolutely frightening.
And really kind of looking at, so I saw that, but I never really dug deeper into, I mean, I obviously know who Cesar Izturis is. He played for a long time, right? He had a very long major league career because he was a good utility infielder.
Great versatility.
Great versatility. He had some contact skills, right? Never struck out. No power whatsoever, though. You know,
17 career home runs in
1,310
games.
13, 13 seasons, 17 home runs. So, ideally that. But again, at the end of the day, you got to say, okay, if he becomes Cesar Izturis and you've got yourself a utility infielder for 5 years, that's valuable. Like that's something, right? You know, there is a roster spot for somebody like Cesar Izturis on good teams, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
But again, that's kind of my thing. Is this isn't really the type of profile player that I wanted to get back. I really have nothing wrong with like when people saw the trade and they were like, you know, we didn't get any top 100 guys. We probably weren't going to get any top 100 guys, you know?
Right.
So it was like from a pure talent standpoint, I think they got decent value for Frazier. Or I'm not really I don't think it was a bad trade in the terms of the value that was received. I just don't love Marcano's profile. Apparently Ben Cherington really likes it. My guess is that Cherington and his staff thinks that there's maybe a little bit of power in there. That would be my guess, right?
Is he the young?
Yeah.
Is he the young Eric Gonzalez?
Well, no.
If Eric Gonzalez is the young Freddie Galvis,
totally,
is he
totally
the young
different.
Eric Gonzalez?
Totally different profiles too. Like Marcano, I mean, Gonzalez strikes out, 40% of the time. I feel like
Well, sure.
Marcano's not going to do that, right? So from an offensive standpoint, Marcano's not going to have as much power as Gonzalez. He's going to be able to hit the ball better than Gonzalez, and get on base more than Gonzalez. So, from a utility role type player, then maybe, but I do think Marcano's ceiling is a little bit higher than that. But again, I'm just not thrilled with the profile.
And part of that is, again, I mean, it's not a younger prospect that, I mean, not that many people have heard of him, of course, either, but it's not like the younger prospect no one heard of that's ready to break out. It's not like Peguero, like could be, he's not advanced, he's not up there yet, so he's not number 5 on the prospect rankings in AAA sitting there, and you kind of know what you have. There's some unknowns to it, but like the profile, like what he could do is, become a 20 home run hitter, but the variance is so large that we don't know what he's going to become. This seems, like you said, kind of safe. He's there. That's the other thing to this. Now, we're still not done. We're going to talk about some other things here, but just another reaction to this, right? Marcano's in AAA. The other guys are in AA. They're all like 22 years old in a sense. They're close.
Mm-hmm.
They're close. The Pirates did select Henry Davis, not like the young shortstop this year. These guys are close. Again, it could be coincidence in all this, okay? But if you want to talk also initial reactions, okay, this is part of it. Just seeing this and seeing whatnot, and then reading a little more into it. It wasn't initial, but close to being initial afterwards. I kind of look at this and like, this is kind of very Huntington. Like, this isn't Cherington MO so far. This kind of seems Huntington-ish. Trade down Frazier. These guys are close. Like what you're saying. Like, the return is fair in that sense, but the headline you're looking at probably being a utility player. Is it just because he can be here and he's going to be on the club next year and it's safe and you've acquired all these high upside guys and you're flooded with them, and now let's get some guys that are going to be here or whatever? And I know it's I can probably tell you right now it's not all of that as well. This is part of the reaction because, as we alluded to, that they really like this guy. But again, like that's kind of how I looked at this. Like, these guys all older to a degree. Like, they're not like 18, 19-year-old. They're all 21, 22. Like, they're up there. They're going to be close to the majors. Yes, I guess we're kind of starting to sense some direction, some window-ish here, maybe, if that's helping. But that was like the other thing that stood out too. Like, these are guys that are going to be close. Maybe a call-up next year for some of them, if not the year after. It's like, I don't know if that played a part. And again, that was kind of my thoughts too. Like, there's a little bit of Huntington in this trade, in my point of view.
Yeah, it's definitely been a little bit different than what he's done in the past, where he's the headliners are those younger guys, high upside, and just, you hope to develop them, right? These guys are kind of more developed than what he's gotten. I don't really read into that too much. I think really you're still just looking for, you're looking for the best value you can get in trades. Regardless if they're 4 years out or 2 years out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not looking into that too much. I just have my gut on this based off of kind of what I read is that, and we'll get into the other two guys, but I think Ben Cherington just really likes Tucupita Marcano. There's just something about him that he likes, and he was kind of, once the Padres were able to include him, he pulled the trigger. I think that's kind of where this all comes down to.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe to somewhat wrap him up then is right. Like, all the things that we just said, we're not scouts. They have their scouts and such. We're just going off information and, of course, stats. And right, like, I worry. I'm not optimistically cautious, as Tyler likes to say anymore. About this, right? Like, I'm kind of worried, but the thing that makes me somewhat cautiously optimistic, I guess, is the sense, like you mentioned, Cherington is apparently wanted this guy. Like, there's clearly something he sees, and the fact that they tried to acquire him in the Musgrove trade, right, tells me that this isn't just something new. They've had eyes on him for a while now. But I guess also to the same degree, if they tried to get him in the Musgrove deal, and the Padres were reluctant to trade him in the Musgrove deal, right? And now here's Adam Frazier coming along, and they're still trying to, and which for one, they're willing to do it. Like, this isn't typically the Pirates' MO as well. So, like, good on Cherington for doing this, and I guess talking nutting or whomever had to make it happen. But like, they also kicked in the $1.4 million, right? The rest of Frazier's salary. They also kicked in to make sure they got this guy. So it's like, not only did Cherington want him, but the Padres are very reluctant in giving him up. So to me, it tells me there's definitely two organizations that do see value in this kid. And that's what I guess makes me feel, what I've been saying to some people is, I guess there's going to be a lot of trust in this. The stuff on paper right now, like, this doesn't look great by any means. You know, it's not like I'm excited about this return. To me right now, how I stand is exactly everything we said, right? It's how I stand. But I'll err on the side of caution and I guess just respect because what Cherington has done so far, and I guess just trust in it at this point, because I think that's all I can do, because I'm not too thrilled. If it were me, I'm not pulling the trigger on this. I'm interested in what Seattle had to do for cheaper, for no money.
Yeah, it would be nice to have seen what Seattle had to offer. Apparently that was another offer on the table. I have a feeling, just based off of like some athletic articles that I read this last week, Seattle just doesn't really have a lot to offer in general. So I'm not sure.
You're also not basing it on what they presented, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no. Thank you. Because whoever wrote that article, and of course there was one of our favorites in it, but that guy from Seattle, oh my God, he's offering the Pirates all the 27-year-old single A prospects.
Right.
Like, that was going to get
like,
Adam Frazier.
What is going on here? Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So let's move on. Let's move on to the rest of the trade here. We kind of talked about Marcano there for a bit. He is the headliner, so a lot of this trade is going to come down to him. But I want to say, so let's talk about the next guy here, Jack Suwinksi.
Yes.
Jack Suwinski, 22 years old. He is about to turn 23. He turns 23 in a few days. So let's just call him a 23-year-old outfielder / designated hitter, double A, left-handed bat. Going into this year, kind of completely off everybody's radar. Like, his name popped up in the trade, and I immediately, and I said, kind of like you, I look at their team rankings and kind of see where he falls, and then kind of read up on him a little bit. Jack Suwinski is nowhere to be found, like anywhere. Like, I had to actually like look up his name. I couldn't just click on it from a list.
Right,
so Jack Suwinski, nowhere to be found. But then when you click on it and you go to him, you're like, oh wow. This guy is mashing the ball in double A, like just absolutely crushing it. He's really everything you want to see about him. He's doing. He's walking almost 17% of the time. The strikeout rate's a little high, but it's doable with what he's doing. In the other categories here, he's striking out right around 27 to 28%, but he's hitting 269 with a 398 on base percentage, a 551 slugging percentage. He's got 15 home runs in double A. So you compare that to kind of the Pirates double A masher, Mason Martin, right? Mason Martin's got 19 home runs right now. Martin leads all of double A, by the way, in home runs.
Take that, Tyler.
So you got Martin with 19 home runs. Now you've got, actually, there's one guy beating Martin. I'm sorry. So then now you've got this guy who you're going to probably slot in at Altoona as well. That Altoona lineup can just flat out rake. So you bring in this guy now. Yeah, 15 home runs, high on base guy. He's interesting, like I said, with the lost year, you really don't know. A lot of stuff can just kind of happen, over the course of a year or two. And so maybe this is a guy who, hey, if he had played last year, maybe he would be on the radar, but because he didn't, he was kind of off everyone's radar. And now you're seeing him put these numbers up in Double-A, and they're really good. So interesting guy, because again, the pedigree's not there, right? I mean, he's a 15th round pick, 2016 high school bat. He always showed a little bit of power in the lower levels, but like nothing to get like excited about. But yeah, this year just completely blowing up in Double-A. He's interesting,
Right. I like agree with that. So like he's next on the list, as you mentioned. Like there's nowhere to find him, so I'm just like on high alert. Oh my god, they got a light hitting, middle infielder, and then two nobodies. But you're right. Like when you look at him, and you're just like, well, how is he left on the list? I don't understand this. The number. I mean, you mentioned. I don't have to go into detail. The numbers are fantastic. I would almost like if you take names and rankings away and just looked at stats. I would look at this and thought like Suwinksi was the headliner. And I would have been like, oh boy, like, wow, look at this trade. But what makes you worry is that before this season, nobody had him on any type of rankings. Nobody. So it's like, what's really there for the people that want to, excuse me, for the people that want to go off and say, well, it doesn't matter what this return was because Adam Frazier is a fluke of a season anyways. You can say the same for like Suwinski. It's like, well, I mean, he's never done this before either. But what you do see is a lot of great stuff. And that's the other thing that stood out as well. It's like not only is just, the power there and such. And yeah, the strikeouts are a bit alarming. It's not over 30%, but it's close. But for his career he has, and of course this year it's even a much higher rate, he has walked also. So yeah, like there are some positives. And when we look at Baseball America, I talked, of course, from Illinois, the cold states. He was kind of like you said, the high school kid had room to grow and develop, and maybe that's just what he's doing. Like he's developed, and you didn't get to see that take place last year because there was no season, right? So it's kind of left in the dark. And now he comes out and says, "Hey guys, look what I've done actually," and he's breaking out to this degree. With that said, Baseball America does state that when the mid-season rankings were to come out, he was going to rank 23rd in the Padres system. So that puts me a little at ease now. Like, okay, he has caught the attention. Baseball America was going to rank him at 23. So if you look at like a package of, Baseball America 7 and now 23 prospect of San Diego, just at prospect numbers, right? Ranking and such. I mean, that makes you feel a little more comfortable about this. Maybe that's just what it is. He's breaking out, and he is a very intriguing bat. I'm willing to see. I think about that aspect, man. If he goes to Double-A, that like, I just want to watch those games all day long now.
Yeah.
The Bash brothers down there.
It's like the Bash brothers. Yeah. It's just a few things here about Suwinski, right? We've kind of all been drooling, other than Tyler, we've been drooling over Mason Martin's year so far, right? But just a couple things on Suwinski. His walk rate is the 5th best walk rate of anybody in Double-A. Across the entire minors, right? So 5th best walk rate in all of Double-A. His weighted runs created plus of 154, 5th best in all of Double-A. Mason Martin's is 10th best, by the way. So he's having a season that is better than Mason Martin's Double-A season, right? And so again, this is definitely your more high variance, high upside guy, right? If things have clicked for this guy and he's a corner outfielder with plus power, then hey, I'll take that all day. But so far, super impressive season in Double-A. I'll be interested to see him a lot because like I said, he's again wasn't on radars before this year, but these results are real. He plays in a pitcher friendly park in San Antonio, so he's going to be moving to Altoona, which is also a pretty pitcher friendly park. But he's putting up some great numbers. The walk rate and the power are both just really exciting.
Yes. So that is, again, this is all definitely intriguing stuff about him. And now also one thing, you just look at the Pirates in itself. I mean, there's just no depth for outfield, especially with Swaggerty going down. That really hurts a lot. So he adds to that at least too. I mean, that's somewhat cool. Again, you're not trading like just for positions or whatever, but like he is sliding in at AA now. He is an outfielder. Some of the Pirates can definitely use, and if he does blossom, I feel like he'll have the opportunity given to him. If he goes to AAA and he produces there, we're not sure what he'll make out to be as a major leaguer. I mean, he might just be a platoon bat, which again, all things that you can use and be useful. But the thing about him is he'll definitely have the ability to play, because it's not as if there's many people stopping him. So I wouldn't doubt if we see him next year in PNC. I think by all means.
And that's another thing. He's Rule 5 eligible this offseason. So if they like him, they're going to have to add him to the 40-man roster.
Right.
So he's a guy who's, because of that fact right there, he's not that far off, right? I mean, if you've got a corner outfielder who's going to have to be on the 40-man next year, I mean, there's definitely some strong potential that you're seeing him at some point next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With you bringing it up now, let's kind of touch on that just to a degree too. That's like another thing with this trade. I mean, we've already talked about the decisions. It's not as if they're the worst and toughest decisions in the world. We're talking about a baseball team that isn't that good, but there's already like this roster crunch next year on all these like Rule 5 eligible guys in this 40-man roster. And so, like that's the thing with this trade. Cherington's like, well, let's just add more. Let's just make things even more confusing, right? Let's bring in all the guys that are eligible. And so you're right. So now he's eligible. Like they're all eligible. What the hell is going to happen next year? There's like 78 guys on this 40-man roster right now heading into next year.
It's gonna be interesting. I mean, I guess the plus here is you're gonna have a lot of room on the 25-man. Like how many people on this 25-man roster are just gonna be gone at the end of the year? a lot. Probably half of it.
I think as we almost talked a little bit, it might have been the WRC, the NS9 plus, WNS9 plus, whatever, with Mike. I think we talked about then, but let's kind of touch on this again here now to talk about that. Like Cole Tucker's job is certainly in jeopardy right now.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially with Marcano coming in. Like Marcano is the type of player that Cole Tucker was last year, where he was kind of playing all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcano's now younger than Cole Tucker. I think with this, Cole Tucker's days are numbered.
I don't think he's a Pirate next year. Like up point blank at this point with this trade, I think this trade seals it. He is not a Pirate next year.
I just don't see where he fits in.
Same. Okay, continue.
But yeah, like I said, going back to that, they are going to have to add a ton of people to this 40-man, and that's going to mean a couple things. One, you're going to see a lot of these guys next year, like at some point. Mm-hmm. It also makes me think that maybe Cherington's process here on the rebuild is that there could be one more year of just not being great. I mean, I don't know how much room they're going to have to add on actual major league talent this offseason.
Yeah.
That's they're going to have all their whole 40-man is going to just be full of guys in AA. So I don't know. We'll kind of, I'm sure once that whole roster crunch happens, we'll talk about it a lot, because there's going to be a ton of moves that need to be made this offseason. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Suwinksi, definitely, he's now another guy who you've got to throw into that fold. He's going to be Rule 5 eligible now. He was actually Rule 5 eligible last year. So, yeah. So there's Suwinski. Definitely intriguing. Definitely interested. The AA numbers are there, and they're pretty impressive.
For sure. I agree. So I guess let's move on to the next guy. And I just want to add here something. So like, as you mentioned, the first guy we talked about was Marcano. easy to find information, right? With Suwinksi, you couldn't even find his name to click on. You never heard of him. You had to search for him. But as you can see on that screen, like I was able to find a graphic, like that's him hitting the ball, right? Here's the thing on the next guy. So of course we never heard of. We don't even know his name. Is it Michell? I don't know. We don't even know his name, truthfully. But here's the other thing: I couldn't even find like an actual picture of him, like in game or anything, opposed to just the generic, like on his the tin cups. What is that? Is that the club's name? The tin cups.
Yeah. You couldn't. He had no pictures.
Just the generic, like here's my face. I couldn't find an actual picture of him. I even scoured like the website, the Twitter handle, stuff like that. Couldn't find a picture. So it's going to be blank, and that kind of tells you about the next guy. So if you want to
found a bunch.
What?
There's a bunch on here.
Are they actually him?
Yeah.
I Googled his name and a bunch of like.
Name.
Are you sure?
It looks like it's all from like his scouting pictures. Like it's not from being in the pot, but it's like his perfect game stuff.
Oh, yeah, who cares about that? When I did it, I got a bunch of like Anderson Espinoza stuff. I was like, well, that's not him. So
oh, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so let's talk about Miliano here. So I again, I don't know anything about him other than just looking at his base. He doesn't even really have scouting reports because he's never been interesting enough to have a scouting report. But he's a reliever. He started off the year in low A, got promoted to high A just about a week or two ago. He put up some pretty impressive strikeout numbers really throughout his entire minor league career. So in low A, he struck out 52 batters in 25 2/3 innings. 52 batters in 25 2/3 innings. That's 18. That's over 18 batters a game. Every 9 innings. So he's striking out 2 batters every 9 innings. Here's kind of the problem, though, Donardo. He's also walking almost a batter an inning. In 2019, when he was in rookie ball, he actually walked 11.14 batters per 9. He's gotten that down a little bit. He was at 7.36 in low A. He's now 8.31 in high A. I mean, this is just one of your classic projects where the strikeout numbers clearly show that his stuff is pretty insane, right?
Right.
Excellent stuff. I mean, you can't put out strikeout numbers like that unless you have just an insane stuff. The walk rate, though, just means that he has no idea where he's throwing the ball. So just a complete project. This is a guy, again, he's Rule 5 eligible. But I don't think this is probably someone you can get away with leaving off your 40 man and probably not risk
losing him,
being taken. Just because that walk rate is so high. I can't imagine a team risking a roster spot for that.
I mean, especially to put him in the majors all year long. I mean, if anything, you mentioned this kid needs some grooming. And
yes,
I'm not going to be done in the major leagues next year. So, right. I think it's pretty safe that he's probably going to stay. I mean, more power to whatever club takes him, I guess, because you got some balls. But I look at him, I'm like, it's funny because maybe Tyler won't like this, but it's like it's Stetson Alley. We joked about Stetson Alley yesterday in our chat.
That's true. Yeah.
And this guy walks everybody, but he strikes out a ton actually. So yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I'm not expecting much from him at all. I think he's just a pure flyer. When you look at like the past, you mentioned about rankings, whatever. I mean, so in 2020, Fangraphs had him as the number 52 prospect in the Padres system, valued at a 35 plus future value. Yeah, like he's probably never seeing the majors. He's just a pure flyer. Has intriguing stuff.
Yeah.
Let's play. Let's tinker with him. Let's find out. to me, it's really the first two that make this package, if anything. But like I find like I'm way more intrigued on I already got the name.
Suwinksi.
Suwinski.
Yeah.
And not so much on Marcano. Like Marcano just seems safe. Suwinski kind of seems like there's something intriguing with him. Let's find out what we have. But at the end of the day, both could really just be part-time role players.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, I think in terms of like what you could expect value-wise for Adam Frazier, this is completely fair. I just I just don't like the profile on Marcano. So I'm not a huge fan of this particular trade. I would have liked to kind of I wonder what else was out there, you know.
Same.
And I also like I'd like to hear I'm sure at some point here we'll get some quotes from Cherington, but there's got to be something about Marcano that he just really likes.
Yeah. And I guess that's also why like I tweeted the way I did. I was like, you know, because all right, like they paid the $1.4 million because they wanted this kid. So take that for something. And that's why I say something, because to me, either that's really good or that's really bad. Because it could be really good. I mean, this is who I want. And they identified whatever it is they wanted him. And like I'll respect that. You know, and to the degree, I mean, we can look at it and say we're undervalued, but if there's someone you want, you see something, go get it, you know, and if he turns out to be great, that's fine. But like the reason I say it could be really bad is because, you know, we haven't really seen, I don't know how to put it. I mean, he's gone through like the younger guys. Obviously, he sees something in them, but like this is probably the closest to the majors he's acquired. So for him to see something, if this kid pans out to be nothing, it's like, well, what the hell did you see? And now I reserve judgment for your ability to see talent. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I say it could be really bad, because if you really saw something of this and like it seems like not too many people are, and he does fail and doesn't pan out and is just becoming like, you know, say sorry, Cirrus, then what the hell is it that you saw in this kid? And now please stay away. Let the other people do their jobs.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. This is one of those trades where
you have to just wait.
I guess most trades like this, you know, you just got to wait it out and see what happens. Yeah,
but to your degree, and what you said, like I do, I'm very intrigued to see what other teams were out there offering, because again, it's like, are you telling me like you passed up on this because you really felt this way about Marcano? You know what I mean? Like I want to see how much it truly like Cherington valued it, or maybe this was just the best offer or what. But you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like you're offered, you know, that, and you pass it up because you really liked Marcano. I would love to know.
Yeah, like were the White Sox willing to give up Jared Kelly? Right? Because if like the White Sox were willing to give up Jared Kelly, then like why aren't you doing that? Right. But again, maybe they weren't. You're right. So it kind of just goes back to who knows what was out there. This, like I said, the other thing too is like the actual, again, the value here seems completely fair, right? It's just a matter of the particular player that was the headliner here. We just got to need to wait and see here to figure out who he is. If he's closer to what MLB Pipeline thinks he is, then hey, I think we did well. If he's closer to what Fangraphs thinks he is, then we probably didn't do very well. If he's in the middle, like Baseball America kind of has him in the middle of those two, then it's fine. You know,
it's fine. And then it's what's Suwinski,
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm with you. If it all pans out and he is a good hitter who gets on base, like he slots in the leadoff, then yes, it's a win. But I just feel like that's the absolute ceiling.
That's the absolute best case
he has
scenario.
To hit, right. And then he basically became Adam Frazier this year. So like his absolute ceiling is that, and if that hits, then that is great. But how often does everyone hit their absolute ceilings? It's not often at all.
Adam Frazier hit his ceiling this year.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
And luckily we're able to get this in return. So
yeah, so hopefully Marcano doesn't do that. Hopefully he provides useful years when the Pirates need useful years, and not when they're looking to trade him in 2027.
Yes.
Okay. Fair.
Fair.
Okay. I think that pretty much wraps up, at least on my end.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to add in and talk about?
I think that's good. Just kind of quickly here, Fangraph, Marcano slides in at 33rd. Suwinksi slides in at 49 is where Suwinski slides in. 49. Pipeline hasn't updated their list yet, but on Pipeline, Marcano should be somewhere in the top 13, just based off of where they rank him with San Diego. So,
which, I mean, let's also say part of that is to the degree of how deep the Pirate system is, but also part of that is because Marcano isn't all that swell of a player either.
Yeah, I mean, so the one thing that you can kind of take from this is the Padres' number 5 prospect in Pipeline is probably a top 13 prospect for the Pirates. He was number 11 in Fangraphs. He's number 33 now that he's with the Pirates. So what that shows you, the Pirates farm system, it's pretty deep. They got a ton of talent in there.
They do. Yep. All right. Well, to sum it up, I guess we're a little uninspired. It is what it is. And I guess just at this point in Cherington, you trust and wait and see. And I guess hope for Adam Frazier 2.0. And not, just to slide this in, and not, because we brought up this comp too, not Kevin Newman. I mean, talking about like the low strikeouts Newman, and such. Right. Hopefully it's not Kevin Newman. Okay.
Hopefully not Kevin Newman.
All right. Thank God.
Yeah. I don't think we want to see another Kevin Newman.
I don't want to see this Kevin Newman anymore either. Let's hope his roster spot isn't safe either next year.
Right.
All right. So we're out of here. We'll be back, I guess, this Thursday for another NS9 Live. So we'll talk to you guys then. Bye-bye.
See you guys.